I've seen my fair share of espresso machines, but how often does one actually bring something new to the table? Well, meet the Rocio Manus S, one of those machines that makes you pause and think, why hasn't anyone done it quite like this before? I'm talking real innovation, clever features, and a workflow that makes me feel I'm in control. Now, before we dive in, quick reminder, if you love staying on top of espresso gear like this, join our brew club. It's free and you'll get early access to gear and exclusive deals. Links down below. And as always, let's get on with the video. Now, I would say for most home baristas, the journey is all about control and the ability to dial in every variable and chase that perfect espresso shot every time. Usually, straight off the bat, that level of control comes at a premium. I would say machines north of $3,500. The Manus S, this sets out to change that story altogether. Now, on the surface, it looks like your classic E61 heat exchanging machine, and in many ways, it still is. But what's happening behind the scenes, and what does this funky dial do over here? Well, I'm about to explain, and that's where things start to feel a little different. And right out of the box, it does set a different tone. Rocio isn't just shipping you a machine. They're offering a full Pesado brewing kit with it. Now, it does come standard without the Pimp My Machine kit in some parts of the world, but here in Australia, it's what we want. You get a hybrid portafilter, so a double spouted or naked portafilter in one. You get a high extraction filter basket and a beautifully heavy set 58.5mm tamper with custom handles for the levers and the legs of the machine. Now, is this the best part of the deal? Not even close, but it does matter. It means that you're not pulling shots on a cheap stamped 16-gram basket or a wobbly tamper. You're starting from a place of quality. And for a lot of people, that's hundreds of dollars of kit already included, and it adds a real sense of value to this package. Let's now move back to adjusting that pump pressure. And here's where things get clever. Most machines that offer flow or pressure control do it with a valve or a restrictor after the pump. Imagine putting your thumb over the end of a garden hose. You're shaping the flow, but the pump itself is still working flat out to push the water. The Manus S flips that on its head. Instead of restricting the flow after the pump, it electronically adjusts the voltage going to the pump itself. And this is nothing new, and it is done on rotary pumps quite often, but this is the first time I can think of it on a vibratory pump. And it means you get real-time modulation of the pump's output. You get dynamic control. You're not just tweaking a valve, you're literally controlling how the pump delivers water to the puck. And it's all right there on a dial on the front of the machine. This feels intuitive, almost playful, but the results are serious. And it's super easy to use. Scroll right to the end and you have a selection of 5 to 10 or E. Now, when you select 5 to 10, this represents 50 to 100% of the pump pressure. Once you select that number, then you're locked into that pump pressure, and when you lift the lever, that's what you're going to get. And when testing this out, it's close to 5 grams a second flow rate at 50% and almost 10 grams a second at full pump, no pressure. And this just gives you a window of how the pump is working to deliver water onto your puck of coffee. Then when selecting E, this is where you get to turn the dial mid-shot to have a variable flow rate. And in testing this out, firstly, by default, when you lift the lever without adjusting anything, you'll be brewing at 50% pump pressure here. And by turning the dial counterclockwise, you can go to a lower possible flow rate of around 3.5 to 4 grams a second when manually controlling the pump on that dial, and then also ramp it up to around 10 grams a second. However, important to point out here, there is a lag time when adjusting the flow. While the water system catches up to the adjustment you just made, It's certainly not instant, but the effects will be seen as long as you're not making too many changes to that dial too often. Think of this as the ability to, say, control a really low flow for a long time and then ramp up and then possibly ramp back down in your shot if needed. Now, not necessarily a con, but a little bit of feedback to El Rocio if you're watching on this system using the E setting would be being able to save a shot profile. Because right now, let's say you brew the most amazing profile by lowering the shot down with a low flow for a few seconds, and then you ramp it up for a few, and then you drop it back down again. You're going to have to remember how you moved that dial exactly and by how many seconds to be able to reproduce that shot. Right now, it is always going to be manual, and you're just going to have to play around with it to know how to reproduce that shot. So I would like to be able to see the ability to save a profile. And also on that note, which it could probably be done within the same programming, is when you're on the E and you're turning the dial, you have no idea how much of an adjustment you're making. You know, if you turn the dial all the way down, you know you're going to get 3.5 gram flow rate. If you turn it all the way up, you know you're going to get to 10 gram flow rate. But anywhere in between is kind of a guess value. You're not too sure by how many turns means that you're going to get to 50, 60, and 70% of your flow rate. So it would be nice to have up on the dial when you're turning the machine, possibly that number in the increase. That way, I guess you could easily, without having to save the profile at least, you could easily see what change you're making. So either one or the other, or both if you want, would be a fantastic addition to this machine. However, one further addition I can talk about is the automatic pre-infusion setting. As pre-infusion is another standout with this machine, you can program it from 4 to 10 seconds. And when activated, it will pump water at 50% pump pressure or around 5 grams a second flow rate, and then ramp up to your pre-programmed pump pressure, whatever that was in the settings. This does mean a few things though. If you have programmed your pump pressure to be set at 5, well, pre-infusion is the same as this. So you won't actually see a ramp up from your pre-infusion to pump pressure. You might as well just turn pre-infusion off altogether. However, if you've got your pump pressure set at 10, then yes, you will see a significant ramp up in pressure. And then if I set my pump pressure to E, this overrides pre-infusion altogether, and then pre-infusion doesn't work at all. But really, that's okay because you're then back to being able to control the flow with the dial anyway. And the machine has small touches that you can tell have been thought through. Adjustable feet, so you can get a level machine. Dual gauges, one for steam and one for brew pressure, so you've got real-time feedback without guessing. I found the lever action to be solid, and the steam knob has a confident resistance. It's these little things that tell you that this machine hasn't been built down to a price. It's been designed with intent. Like not having any water tap. I would bet this is hardly a deal breaker for most, considering the rest of the features that are available with this machine. Now let's run through some of the practical specs that we haven't covered already. 2.5 litre water tank. Easy to fill, big enough for daily use without constant refills. 1.8 litre stainless steel boiler, plenty of capacity for home use. A vibratory pump, yes, a little bit louder at full tilt, but paired with the electronic modulation, it's much more versatile than most Vib pump setups. Dimensions, it's compact enough for a kitchen bench and roughly the same size as any other HX machine. But the design has a slight modern edge to it. Fit and finish is a stainless steel casing, clean welds, noise dampening has been used on the drip tray, although that could be a little bit bigger, but again, nothing too serious to draw attention away, and a very handy boiler tap under the machine. Now this you only want to open to completely drain a cold boiler. Say you're going away for more than 3 weeks, or you're traveling with it, perhaps you're moving house. Most machines are very cumbersome to empty the boiler completely, but El Rocio have included this brilliant tap on the bottom which I can't imagine costs too much to include, but does go a long way in adding value to using and caring for this machine. Now, in daily use, the Manus S feels thoughtful and deliberate. This E61 group, it does need a bit of time to warm up, like 20 minutes, which shouldn't be any surprise, but once it is warmed up to temperature, brewing is consistent and predictable. But it wouldn't hurt to install an E61 group head thermometer like this, so you can get a full understanding of the ready and the recovery times of this machine. And one more feature that really sets this machine apart is the PID controlled boiler. Nothing new on a HX machine. It lets you fine tune the boiler temperature to influence your brew temperature, which is especially handy for adjusting for different coffee beans or roast profiles. However, this is surprisingly different as it lets you dial that main steam boiler down all the way to like 60 degrees Celsius, which really isn't a thing. And I actually haven't seen that playing on any other PID machine. It usually stops at around 80 degrees. Not that you would ever bring your boiler down to 80 degrees anyway, because then it would probably make the brew water temperature around 70 degrees or even less. But it's just interesting how they've given it full capabilities of adjusting temperature. There is a handy table that you would want to follow. I'll put it up here somewhere, and that's going to give you the best settings to make sure you get your brew water as well as steam pressure combined. But you put all of this as a package together with pre-infusion and dynamic flow control. This gives you a level of precision that's honestly unusual for a machine in this price range. Equally, steaming milk is satisfying. You get plenty of power for silky microfoam, and you can move seamlessly between brewing and steaming without wasting any time. Overall, it is a workflow that feels deliberate but not cumbersome, there's that word again, letting you focus on dialing in your shot rather than wrestling with the machine. So let's just make a coffee. It's all warmed up, and we'll see how we go, shall we? Let's do this. I'm going to go naked shot. Get a blind basket with it too. I should have mentioned you get a blind basket. I'm just going to dose out some coffee and I'll come back. I always get to this section and go, yeah, no, I probably should have had something prepared. Alrighty. Sweet. Still probably going to need some scales for that. Didn't have to be that harsh on the scales, did I? Now, honestly, I would say about this machine, this manual, this settings here is, I found it so easy to use. Like, I can really adjust it on the fly, no worries. Some machines, you gotta stop and think about when you scroll through the programs. It's really hard to go back and forwards and lock programs in. Where this, I find it so easy to do. So I'm gonna go, E. Make sure I don't have pre-infusion on because I don't need it if I'm on E. And I'm gonna go, it's got a big canal, go this size cup. This size cup, 20 grams in, we're good. I'm gonna go low pre-infusion until I see some coffee coming out, and then I'm gonna ramp it up. So usually it's around 40, 50 grams in the puck, and then ramp it up, which is pretty good. I found that to be the best setting.
heck?
So as soon as I lift the lever, I come up to get to that really low profile of pump, which is barely pumping any water into the machine. There we go. I got coffee coming in. It's not as loud as I said it was. It's pretty tame, to be honest. That's so beautiful. Nice. 38 and 28 with a really long, low pre-infusion. I ramped it right up for maybe 8 seconds and then ramped it back down again to control that extraction. So I increased the efficiency of the extraction at the start of the shot by having a low flow, long pre-infusion, extracted as much as I could quickly, and then gently extended the shot out to get my volume without over extracting the coffee. All right, time to steam some milk. Woo! Oh, yeah. Now, if I wasn't using E every day, then I would probably set my pre-infusion, well, all depending on how I would, all depending, I guess, what my coffee was. Let's go back to that. All depending on what my coffee was. But, and then my pump pressure and what I'm trying to get out of the coffee. I mean, this will all change the flavor of your coffee, whether you're focusing on clarity or sweetness or acidity or body or texture. Like, you can really play around with this. There's not one setting that fits everything. Actually, steams really beautiful milk. I'm nailing my tulips lately. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, like, to talk about pre-infusion and pressure, like, there's so much that goes into it. Like, me personally, like, I was really happy with that, how I brewed that espresso. But if I was just wanting to lift the lever without thinking about moving the dial, I'd probably set my pump pressure to maybe, I don't know, like 60, maybe 70% pump pressure. And I'd have my pre-infusion set to around 5-6 seconds. I think that's where I get the most balance. But then again, that all really comes back to your grind size as well. So how you set your grind size means how much pressure is going to build behind that coffee grind. And we're getting pretty deep there. So I'm going to leave it there. Now, of course, no machine is perfect. The Manus S has a few things to keep in mind, mostly typical E61 style quirks, like the vibratory pump noise. You'll hear that noticeable buzz, which I thought was going to be louder than it was. When you brew, you know, it's engaged. It's the nature of a vibratory pump, but it is reliable, punchy, but not whisper quiet, I guess. Then I would say another con to this machine perhaps is that learning curve for finding what works best for you. And I've kind of already mentioned this. The flow control, this feature is brilliant, but it adds another variable to dial in. For beginners, that can feel like an extra bit of homework before you get comfortable. So for that, I would probably just focus on your pump pressure and your pre-infusion, and then kind of work towards playing around with the adjustable variable during the shot pump pressure. We've also mentioned heat up times. It should come as no surprise. Like most E61 heat exchanging machines, it's going to take 20 minutes to fully stabilize the group head and the portafilter for temperature. Not exactly a flip and switch go setup. And I would say holding it back on flooding the market altogether would be the limited brand recognition. El Rocio is relatively new, like not relatively, very new to many countries. Already popular in Korea for almost a decade actually, you might need to hunt a little bit for parts or local service, though taking a look on the inside of the machine, it's been made beautifully to access everything you need. Like it's not going to be too hard to service this machine. However, the online community, it isn't big yet, like some other older established brands. But I think looking at the timeline so far, I don't think El Rocio is a one and done. Now, finally, these are not deal breakers, but considerations nonetheless. The cup tray and the drip tray, they're quite small. You take this and having no hot water tap, and you can kind of see where El Rocio have chosen to focus their attention. They've gone elsewhere. But also, the steam wand. After all the thoughtful details elsewhere, it is a small surprise that the steam wand isn't fitted with a simple internal plastic sleeve to make a cool touch. It's not a con per se, plenty of machines don't have it, but after everything else that I've spoken about, it's so well considered, it's a little eyebrow raising. Now let's be clear here, this is where I'll say it is early days. The El Rocio Manus S hasn't had a decade or more of track record that a Domabar, ECM, Betzera or Profitec has. But honestly, that's what makes it exciting. They've come out swinging with ideas that feel fresh, thoughtful, and genuinely useful. My hope is that El Rocio keep building on this foundation and become one of those names home baristas talk about in the same breadth as established players. So, who is this machine for? If you're stepping up from an entry-level espresso machine, this is an approachable but serious leap forwards. It gives you the workflow of a heat exchanger with the bonus of pump pressure, flow profiling. And if you've already experienced this, but you don't want to shell out thousands of dollars for a rotary pump profiler, this is one of the most intriguing options out there right now. The El Rocio Manus S, it isn't just another shiny box with an E61 bolted on. It's a bold move into a space that I think needed some fresh thinking. And in my book, that's worth paying attention to. So thank you so much for watching till the end of this video. If you have any further questions on this machine, drop them in the comment section down below. I'd love to keep the conversation going. And as always, we'll see you in the next video.